When my son died, I believed the universe had taken everything from me. Then his best friend called me 4 days after we scattered the ashes. Mr. Fontaine, I found a USB drive hidden in Michael's workshop. You need to see what's on it. And please, don't tell Christine anything. I think she knows I have it. Those words made my heart stop. What could Michael possibly have hidden from his own wife? But when I drove to Calgary and watched those files open on the screen, my entire body went numb. The man I raised had known he was in danger, and he'd left me everything I needed to prove it. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The memorial service was held at a small chapel overlooking the Bow River. My wife Elaine had passed 3 years earlier from cancer, and now our only child, our Michael, was gone at 41. A brain aneurysm, they said, collapsed during his morning workout in the basement gym. His wife Christine found him when she came home from her yoga class. She stood at the front of the chapel now, accepting condolences with the grace of a woman born for public sympathy. Black dress, tasteful pearls, just enough tears to seem devastated, but not enough to ruin her makeup. She'd always been beautiful, Christine, the kind of beautiful that made you forget to look deeper. A man approached her, young, maybe 35, wearing a suit that fit too well for a funeral guest. They exchanged words I couldn't hear. He touched her elbow briefly, and she smiled. Not a grief smile. Something else. Something familiar between them. I watched him leave through the side door without speaking to anyone else. Christine caught my eye and walked over, taking my hands in hers. "Dad, why don't you stay at our place tonight? I can't bear the thought of you driving all the way back to Victoria alone." I'd never liked her calling me Dad. I'd tolerated it for Michael's sake. "I'll be fine. Booked a hotel downtown." She squeezed my hands. "You shouldn't be alone right now. We're family." The word felt wrong in her mouth, but I nodded, said I'd think about it, and watched her glide away to greet more mourners. The truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about the phone call I'd received from Michael 11 days before he died. It was nearly midnight when he called, which was unusual. Michael was disciplined about sleep, about routine. "Dad, I need to ask you something. If anything ever happened to me, would you promise to look after things? Make sure everything was handled right?" I'd laughed it off. "You're 41. Nothing's going to happen to you. Just promise me." There was something in his voice. Fear, maybe. Or resignation. "I promise. But Michael, what's going on? I can't talk about it now. I'll explain everything when I see you at Christmas." Christmas was 3 weeks away. Michael never made it. The hotel room felt like a cell. I sat by the window watching the city lights blur through my tears, remembering the boy who used to help me build birdhouses in the garage, who called every Sunday evening without fail, who'd been afraid of something and hadn't told me what. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Fontaine, this is Daniel Okonkwo, Michael's friend from university. I was his business partner at the firm. I need to speak with you urgently. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? Please don't mention this to Christine." Daniel. I remembered Michael mentioning him. They'd started an engineering consulting firm together 5 years ago, specializing in environmental assessments for mining operations. Michael had spoken highly of him. I texted back. Where and when? We met at a coffee shop in Kensington, far from anywhere Christine might wander. Daniel was a tall man with kind eyes and hands that wouldn't stop moving, constantly adjusting his coffee cup, his napkin, his phone. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Fontaine. Call me Robert." He nodded but didn't use my name. "I found something 3 days ago. Michael gave me a key to his workshop last year, said I could use his tools whenever I needed. After the service, I went there to, I don't know, feel close to him, I suppose." He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. This was hidden inside a hollowed-out book on his shelf. To Kill a Mockingbird, his favorite. What's on it? Daniel's face darkened. Everything. Bank statements, emails, photographs, recordings. Michael documented it all. He opened his laptop and inserted the drive. Folder after folder appeared on the screen. As he clicked through them, my hands began to shake. Christine had been systematically draining their joint accounts for 18 months. The transfers were clever, disguised as business expenses, charitable donations, payments to vendors that didn't exist. The total exceeded $800,000. The money flowed to an account under the name Bradley Weston. "Who is Bradley Weston?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Daniel pulled up a photograph. The man from the funeral, the one with the well-fitted suit and the familiar smile. Her personal trainer. They've been having an affair for almost 4 years. The photographs were damning. Christine and Bradley, at restaurants, at hotels, walking hand in hand, on beaches I didn't recognize. The timestamps showed dates when Michael was traveling for work, trusting his wife to be home waiting for him. But that wasn't the worst of it. Daniel opened a document, a letter Michael had written, dated 2 weeks before his death. "Dad, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and I need you to know the truth. I discovered Christine's affair 8 months ago. I hired a private investigator, documented everything, and consulted with a divorce lawyer. I was planning to confront her after the holidays, file for divorce, and protect what assets I could. But 3 weeks ago, Christine found out I knew. I don't know how. Maybe she saw something on my computer, or maybe Bradley told her. She's been different since then, watching me, asking strange questions about my health, my exercise routine, my supplements. She's been pushing me to increase my life insurance. Keeps talking about how anything can happen, and we should be prepared. Last week, she suggested I add a rider for accidental death. I changed the beneficiary on my policy to you 2 days ago. She doesn't know yet. Dad, I might be paranoid. I hope I am. But if something happens to me that seems natural or accidental, please don't accept it at face value. Please look deeper. You spent 30 years investigating cases for the RCMP. You know how to find the truth. I love you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was ashamed. I thought I could handle it myself. Your son, Michael." I read the letter 4 times. My boy, my strong, capable, proud boy, had been afraid for his life and hadn't told me until it was too late. Daniel was crying silently. I should have noticed something was wrong. He seemed stressed the last few months, but I thought it was just work pressure. I never imagined. I looked at the date on Michael's letter, November 28th. He died December 9th. I drove to the Calgary Police Service headquarters that afternoon with the USB drive and every document Daniel had given me. They directed me to Detective Sarah Chen, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a patient manner. She listened as I laid out everything. "Mr. Fontaine," she said carefully when I finished, "I understand your concerns, but your son's death was examined thoroughly. The medical examiner found no signs of trauma, no indication of foul play. Brain aneurysms can occur suddenly, even in healthy individuals. My son was healthy. He ran marathons, had a complete physical 6 months ago with perfect results. No family history of aneurysms on either side. That does sometimes happen. These things can develop without warning. Detective Chen, my son, wrote a letter saying he feared for his life. His wife was stealing from him, having an affair, and pushing him to increase his insurance coverage. He died 12 days after writing that letter." She looked at the documents again. "This shows financial misconduct and infidelity. That's significant, but it doesn't prove murder. Without evidence of how someone might have caused a brain aneurysm." She spread her hands apologetically. I left the station understanding that no one would help me. Not yet. Not without more. But I'd spent 32 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the last 20 in forensic investigation. I'd analyzed crime scenes from Vancouver to Newfoundland, testified in dozens of trials, helped put away murderers who thought they'd committed the perfect crime. If anyone could find the truth about what happened to my son, it was me. I returned to Christine's house that evening, accepted her offer to stay in the guest room, and began playing a role I'd never imagined. The grieving, oblivious father who suspected nothing. "Thank you for being here, Dad," Christine said over dinner. She'd made Michael's favorite meal, roast chicken with rosemary potatoes, which struck me as either touching or obscene. "It helps to have family close. We should support each other," I said, the words like gravel in my throat. "It's what Michael would have wanted." She nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. He loved you so much, always talked about how you taught him everything about being a man, about integrity. I watched her perform grief and marveled at the skill of it. Every gesture calculated, every tear precisely timed. Over the following week, I observed her patterns. She left the house every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon, claiming to visit friends or attend grief counseling. I followed her on Wednesday. She drove to a condominium complex in Mount Royal and entered Unit 412. Through the window, I could see her embracing Bradley Weston. They weren't even being careful anymore. I photographed everything: license plates, timestamps, the tender moments visible through carelessly open blinds. Evidence accumulating. At night, while Christine slept, I searched the house. Michael's home office had been cleaned out, his computer wiped, his files shredded. But Christine wasn't as thorough as she believed. In the basement, behind the furnace, I found a small plastic bag containing 2 prescription bottles. The labels had been removed, but one bottle still had partial residue inside. I collected a sample carefully, preserving it the way I'd been trained decades ago. In her car's glove compartment, hidden under the owner's manual, I found receipts from a pharmacy in Red Deer, over 90 kilometers away. The purchases were made in cash, but the dates aligned with the weeks before Michael's death. The items purchased: potassium chloride solution, medical grade, high concentration. My forensic mind connected the pieces. Potassium chloride, administered intravenously, could cause cardiac arrest that might be misdiagnosed as various natural causes, including aneurysm complications. If injected while the victim was sleeping or incapacitated, it would leave minimal trace evidence unless specifically tested for. Michael worked out in the basement every morning at 5:30, before Christine was awake. Or supposedly before she was awake. What if she'd been awake, waiting, watching for the right moment? I needed the toxicology reports. I needed to know what they'd actually tested for. I called Daniel, who called a friend at the medical examiner's office. The standard toxicology panel hadn't included potassium levels or injection site analysis. Why would it? There'd been no reason to suspect anything unnatural. But there was a way to know for certain. As next of kin and executor of Michael's estate, I had legal authority to request additional testing. Some tissue samples had been preserved before cremation. I contacted a private forensic laboratory in Toronto, explained what I needed, and arranged for the samples to be analyzed. Then I waited. The waiting was agony. I continued staying at Christine's house, continued playing the heartbroken father, continued watching her meet with Bradley Weston, while my son's ashes sat in an urn on the mantel. One evening, Christine made tea. She handed me a cup with a sympathetic smile. "You've seemed so tired lately, Dad. This herbal blend helps with sleep." I thanked her, raised the cup to my lips, and pretended to drink while she watched. When she turned away, I poured it into a potted plant. The plant was dead by morning. The laboratory results arrived 3 weeks after I'd submitted the samples. The report confirmed elevated potassium chloride levels inconsistent with natural occurrence, along with microscopic evidence of an injection site in the tissue near Michael's left arm. My son had been murdered, poisoned in his own home, by a woman who'd promised to love him. I sat in my hotel room holding the report, and I wept, not just from grief, but from the cold certainty of what Michael had endured, the fear of those final weeks, the betrayal of someone he'd trusted with his life. I contacted Detective Chen immediately. This time, I brought everything: the bank records, the photographs, the pharmacy receipts, the residue from the basement, the letter from Michael, and most importantly, the toxicology results, proving injection. Detective Chen read each document with increasing intensity. When she reached the lab report, she looked up at me. "Potassium chloride injection. This is definitive." "Yes." She closed the folder. "Mr. Fontaine, I'm reopening this investigation as a homicide. Everything you've gathered will be entered as evidence. I need you to continue maintaining your cover while we build an airtight case." "How long?" "A few weeks. We need to coordinate with the Crown prosecutor, obtain warrants. Your son deserves justice done properly." I agreed, though every fiber of my being screamed for immediate action. I wanted to confront Christine, to see her face when she realized the truth had found her. But I'd learned patience in 32 years of police work. I could wait a little longer. 2 weeks later, I was back at Christine's house for what she believed was a discussion about Michael's estate. The real purpose was keeping her occupied, while police executed search warrants at her home, Bradley Weston's condominium, and the pharmacy in Red Deer. Christine served wine and cheese, chatting about her plans to sell the house, maybe move somewhere warmer. Michael always wanted to travel, she said wistfully. I think I'll honor his memory by finally seeing the world. On his money? With his killer? My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Chen. Warrant executed. Found remaining potassium chloride hidden in Weston's condo, along with emails discussing the plan. Both subjects being arrested now. Christine's phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, excused herself. I heard her voice rise from the next room. What do you mean they're at Bradley's? What are they looking for? She came back into the living room, her face ashen, the mask finally cracking. Dad, I need to. Something's come up. Can we continue this another time? Of course. Is everything all right? Fine. Just paperwork issues. She practically pushed me out the door. As I walked to my car, 2 unmarked police vehicles pulled into the driveway. Detective Chen emerged from one. Christine Fontaine, you're under arrest for the murder of Michael Fontaine. You have the right to retain and instruct counsel. I watched them handcuff her in the driveway of the home my son had bought, furnished, and died in. She looked at me as they led her to the car, and finally, her face showed something real. Fury, hatred, the understanding that she'd been caught by the father-in-law she'd dismissed as a harmless old man. Bradley Weston was arrested simultaneously at his condominium, caught trying to destroy evidence. A search of his computer revealed months of communications with Christine, planning Michael's death in meticulous detail. They'd researched untraceable poisons, debated methods, calculated exactly how much insurance money they'd collect. The trial began in September. I attended every day, sitting in the front row of the gallery, where Christine could see me each time she glanced toward the spectators. The Crown prosecutor built the case methodically. The pharmacy security footage showing Christine purchasing potassium chloride while wearing a disguise that wasn't quite good enough. The emails between her and Bradley discussing the timeline and the package. The forensic evidence proving injection. Michael's letter, read aloud by the prosecutor, with devastating effect. Several jurors wiped their eyes. One had to ask for a recess to compose herself. Bradley Weston had crumbled within days of his arrest, accepting a plea deal in exchange for testimony against Christine. He described how she'd approached him 2 years into their affair with the idea, how they'd planned everything for months, how she'd practiced injecting saline into oranges until she was confident she could do it without waking Michael. She told me she deserved better, Bradley testified, avoiding Christine's eyes, that Michael was boring, that he didn't appreciate her, that the insurance money would let us start a new life together. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. Christine's defense attorney tried to paint Bradley as the mastermind, Christine as an abused woman manipulated by a controlling lover. But the evidence was overwhelming. The potassium chloride was found in her possession. The pharmacy footage showed her face. The emails came from her devices. A former colleague of Michael's testified about seeing bruises on Christine and assuming Michael was the abuser. But under cross-examination, she admitted Christine had never actually claimed Michael hurt her, had only implied it through carefully worded suggestions. More devastating was the testimony of Christine's sister, who revealed that Christine had asked strange questions about undetectable poisons at a family dinner 2 years earlier, laughing it off as research for a novel she claimed to be writing. She'd never written any novel. On October 18th, the jury returned their verdict after 6 hours of deliberation. Guilty. First-degree murder. Guilty. Conspiracy to commit murder. Guilty. Fraud over $5,000. Christine collapsed. Had to be supported by court officers as the verdict was read. Bradley Weston, already sentenced to 12 years in exchange for his testimony, sat in the witness room, watching through closed-circuit television, his future destroyed by a woman who'd promised to run away with him to somewhere warm. The sentencing came 3 months later. Life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years for Christine. She would be 69 years old before she could even apply for release. The judge addressed her before pronouncing the sentence. You betrayed a man who loved you, who built a life with you, who trusted you completely. You planned his murder for months, executed it without hesitation, and showed no remorse until you were caught. The callousness of your actions represents a profound moral failure that this court cannot overlook. Christine had nothing to say. She stared straight ahead, hollow, as her entire future collapsed into prison walls. The insurance company voided all claims the moment charges were filed. Christine received nothing. Bradley received nothing. Everything Michael had built, the business he'd grown with Daniel, the investments he'd accumulated, the home he'd maintained, all of it went into a trust I established in his name. The Michael Fontaine Foundation now provides legal and investigative resources to families who suspect their loved ones' deaths weren't accidents, but can't get authorities to listen. Daniel runs the day-to-day operations from Calgary. We've helped 11 families in 2 years. 8 resulted in reopened investigations. 5 led to arrests. I returned to Victoria after the trial, to the house where Elaine and I raised Michael, where he took his first steps and spoke his first words, and grew into a man I was proud to call my son. I still keep his childhood bedroom exactly as it was when he left for university. Hockey posters on the walls, trophies on the shelf, the telescope we'd bought together when he was 12, and fascinated by the stars. Sometimes I sit there and talk to him, tell him about the foundation, about the families we've helped, about how his death meant something even though it should never have happened. Detective Chen calls me occasionally. She's sent several cases my way, families in similar situations who need guidance from someone who understands. I review their evidence, help them document their concerns properly, connect them with resources they didn't know existed. It's not the retirement I planned. Elaine and I were supposed to travel, to see the world together, to spoil grandchildren that never came. Instead, I spend my days ensuring other families don't suffer the way mine did. But there's purpose in it, meaning the knowledge that every case we help represents someone's child, someone's parent, someone's sibling who deserves the truth. Last month, I received a letter from a woman in Winnipeg whose husband was convicted of killing their daughter based partly on evidence-gathering techniques she'd learned from our foundation's resources. Her daughter had been dead for 4 years before anyone believed it wasn't an accident. Now her killer will spend the rest of his life in prison. She thanked me, said knowing the truth didn't bring her daughter back, but made her death matter. That's what Michael would have wanted. Not revenge, but accountability. Not anger, but justice. The assurance that others would be protected, that patterns would be recognized, that killers who thought they'd gotten away with murder would eventually face the consequences they deserved. Tonight, I sit on my back deck, watching the sun set over the Pacific. The mountains of Washington State are visible across the strait, purple and gold in the fading light. Elaine loved this view. Michael proposed to Christine on this deck, under stars that seemed to promise a lifetime of happiness. The grief never leaves. It's always there. A hollow space where my son used to be, where his phone calls and visits and terrible jokes used to fill my days with joy. But alongside it now is something else. Not peace, exactly. Not satisfaction. Something quieter. Something earned. Justice served, truth uncovered. A father's promise kept. Christine will spend decades in a cell, aging alone, knowing that the father-in-law she'd dismissed as harmless was the one who found her out. Bradley will emerge from prison in his late 40s, broken, his youth and dreams destroyed by his own choices. Neither of them will ever benefit from what they did to my son. The money they killed for went to help others instead. Michael's legacy is families saved, crimes exposed, truths uncovered. That matters. It doesn't fill the hollow space, but it matters. Michael, wherever you are, I hope you know. I hope you know I kept my promise. I hope you know that everything you feared would be buried came into the light instead. I hope you know that your father loved you enough to spend every resource, every skill, every remaining day of his life ensuring your death meant something. That's what fathers do. We protect our children, even when we've failed to protect them in life. We carry their memory forward. We make certain their lives mattered. And yours did, son. Yours mattered more than I can ever express. The foundation helps another family every month. Each one is a victory, a small redemption, a continuation of the work Michael started when he documented Christine's betrayal and trusted me to find it. He was braver than he knew, smart enough to leave evidence, hopeful enough to believe his father would find the truth. I did, Michael. I found it all, and I'll keep finding it for others until I don't have the strength anymore. Then Daniel will continue, and the people we've trained, and the families we've empowered. Your name will be remembered not for how you died, but for what your death inspired. A movement, a mission, a promise kept across years and distances and heartbreak. The stars are coming out now, the same stars you used to watch through that telescope, the same stars that have shone over this earth for billions of years, and will continue long after all of us are gone. But while I'm here, while I have breath and purpose and a promise to keep, I'll make sure your light isn't forgotten. Sleep well, my boy. Your father is still fighting. If you found this story meaningful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us continue bringing stories like this one. To hear another story, click on the video appearing on your screen now